So about 2 weeks ago, we ended up beating the 100th floor of Summit as a group. So, four of us versus five hunters. Ended up completing it. It wasn't, too difficult. Ended up getting to see all the glory that is Summit, the fully constructed building that isn't there. But of course, I did not have all the pieces from the chests. So I had to run through, farm all this stuff, which took me forever. I mean, I can't explain how poorly my drop rate was for these chests. So of course we ended up going through it again, to get the chest piece. This time I kind of tried out something different. I was interested in using the shock trap this time. We had used the riot foam the previous time. I mean, these are all kind of well-known things at this point. On this front, I mean, this video has pretty much been in the works for about 2 weeks now. I mean, I've been playing it, I've been testing things out, I've been trying things. Nothing in this video I can say is really going to be new to you. I mean, at least if you're interested in Floor 100, if you've been trying to do it solo, maybe I can offer some advice, maybe I can offer some pointers. But for the most part, most of it is already out there. I tried the shock trap, and I found that it works really well. I couldn't actually tell if it was EMP'd or not. Sometimes it seemed like even after I was EMP'd, it still worked. So it's definitely a good stop for the hunters to keep them from rushing you. And of course, everyone already knows about the foam. I mean, that's kind of a common thing to use against the hunters, at least from the videos that I've seen. But that's kind of what I want to talk about. I was, went into this video thinking that I wanted to talk about how to make the perfect solo build for a hunter. But the overall feeling that I got was the build doesn't matter. It's pretty much all luck. Everything in the hunter encounter is pretty much luck based. And the reason I say this is because if you look at all the videos that are out there currently about soloing the 100th floor, soloing the hunters, look at what the hunters are doing. Look at the behavior of the hunters. Just like you see in this footage right here. This is pretty much what you are seeing on YouTube of how to beat the hunters. The hunters are stuck in cover. They don't move. They don't do anything. And you just beam them in the head over and over again until they use all their medkits. That's pretty much it. That's every hunter encounter that I've seen on the internet. Now, there was one that was actually fairly good. It was some guy using a shield build. I forget who it was. I can't remember. I think he was a smaller YouTuber. I think he only had like a couple hundred subs. So if you guys find that, you can post it in the comments below. But he actually went out there and was pushing the hunters a little bit. But again, they still had the same kind of behavior where every now and then they would just sit and cover while he's beaming them in the head. And this is pretty much the behavior that everyone is showcasing their build on. I don't know how this happens. I don't know what causes them to do this. They basically just sit there, again, as you can see. And in fact, the only time they would actually shoot at me is right after I riot foamed them. So if I would riot foam them, cause them to stand up, then they might shoot me. Besides for that, they just sat there, did nothing. I don't even think they really used skills at all. That's how like locked up their AI was. So judging a build based on this behavior is pretty much worthless because this is all luck. I mean, you need to be more lucky to get this behavior so you can beat them than pretty much anything else in the game. Now, it's not to say that it happens a lot. I don't know how often it happens. For me personally, while I was testing this stuff out as a solo player, it happened about 2 times, I think. About 2 times. However, I was playing level 100 for about 8 hours. Yes, I was playing through this 8 hours, testing random stuff, testing all sorts of things to try to offer you helpful advice. And the best advice that I could come up with is it's all luck-based. However, there are some things that you can do to actually make your build, competitive against them in case they are not. And that's kind of what I want to talk about just in case, you guys aren't as lucky to get a situation like this. That's what I did. I basically played this. I would kill a hunter. I would die. I would, just kind of test out random things. I would change my build up as soon as I got into here. And I would pretty much try to test everything. I tried to test a bunch of skills. I tried to test a bunch of weapons, a bunch of different builds. And I kind of came up with a general theory of what works and what kind of doesn't. Now, to talk about what actually works. You can use shield builds. I would suggest going with more hazard protection if you're going to be a shield build, just because you don't want to be up close with one and then have the other, hunter basically blast you with the EMP, and then you're kind of defenseless. That sucks. So I would go with at least, 50% hazard protection if you're going to try to go for something up close, but you don't need it. But the one that I tested definitely used like 90 something percent EMP or disrupt resistance. So it helped. It did help. Now again, I played for 8 hours, so I didn't record every single moment of me playing. Obviously that's just a lot of footage to go over and go through. So I pretty much just kind of recorded the first little bit and then just gave up because I figured I'll just explain it, the rest of the way. So again, pistol builds, shield builds, they can work. You just have to have a really strong shield because the hunters can drop them pretty quick. And you probably want to have a little bit of hazard protection or disrupt resistance to keep that shield alive. The second thing that everyone knows, status effects work wonders. Now, you can choose whatever status effect you want. However, the one thing that I want to talk about is just reaction speed. Now, hunters can put on a medkit extremely quickly. And generally speaking, they can put on a medkit before you can drop all of their armor. Now, what triggers their medkit is when they get about 2.5 bars of armor. At that point, that's when they will try to medkit. So you can time this to try to, stop firing on them right as you get to, like slightly under 3 bars. That way you can then apply a status effect to basically stun lock them while you drop them. Now, it depends. Obviously, I wouldn't say the shock trap is the best status effect to use when you're trying to drop them just because it's so quick. I would probably try to say go with the sticky foam. But again, sticky foam, when you use it and then when you switch to your weapons, it takes a lot of that time away. So it can be, a little bit detrimental to your reaction time. But when you do apply a status effect, it basically does stop them from actually applying a medkit. So if they're like halfway done and you're not going to drop them, you can apply a status effect to them really quick and stop them from medkitting. So that means, there's plenty of strategies that you could use. So let's say if you had the chest piece that does the bleed and the blind, you could potentially just shoot them for body shots, getting them down to that, specific area, then hit them with the blind to stop them from medkitting. You could basically just avoid using the headshot just to get them when they're using the medkit. Again, you could also try using the Banshee Pulse, because the Banshee Pulse, you can do the quick reaction button. You can basically just tap the button and pop out the pulse, as long as I think it's within like 10 meters or something. So you have to be fairly close, but you can use it. You can basically just stop them from medkitting by confusing them. Now, something I didn't get to test just because I didn't have it with me was the Ravenous, or I guess you could potentially use the Merciless. But those weapons do work to stun the final boss on the second raid. So maybe you could use it to stagger a hunter when he's healing. I'm not entirely sure on that. If you want to test that out, feel free, go ahead. Another thing to talk about is that if you pay attention to some of my community posts that I write, I did say that the hunter has somewhere between 41 and 42 million health. That's not an insane amount compared to the original legendary enemies. But what it could mean for you is you could potentially make a full-on like Nemesis build. So having, a lot of crit damage, crit chance, headshot damage, that kind of stuff. Basically meaning that you could try to two-shot a hunter. Now, I'm not entirely sure on just how much damage you could get a Nemesis to do, but I think you could probably get it over, about 20 million. So you should be able to at least, work your way down. And if you kind of primed your hunter, got him down to that 2.5 armor bar limit, you might be able to just, use the Nemesis there to one-shot him the rest of the way. Now, I know a lot of people are also using the M1A, and again, the M1A, any sniper besides the Nemesis, works pretty much in the same way. You're kind of waiting for them to sit in cover and not do anything and not respond. That's pretty much the one commonality that I've seen. This tactic is fine if they stay in cover, but the majority of the encounters that I actually had with them do not involve them just sitting there. What happens usually is you get some sort of cheap mechanic that they freaking just wreck you with. I mean, I've had them throw a stinger hive right on top of me or right behind me so that I basically can't do anything before I'm dead. I've had them throw a sniper turret clear in the back of the room so that I basically just get downed almost immediately. I mean, I think their sniper turret is hitting for close to 1 million. So if you don't have any armor, you're probably going to be nearly one shot. And if you even try to roll and you get breathed on funny by a hunter, you're dead. So it all depends, again, on luck. Luck of their skills, luck of them either just hiding and sitting in cover, or, luck of them just basically just being inept and not doing anything correctly. I mean, they've spammed me before with their fire starter chem launcher. They've spammed me with, the stinger hives. They've spammed me with bomb drones. They've spammed me with lots of things. And other times, they've just completely been useless with their skills. They don't hit anything with them. They're throwing them into walls. They're throwing them short of the room. They're throwing them, behind the door of the room so that they don't actually do any damage or get me. There's a lot of mistakes that they make. At least there's a lot of mistakes that they can make. But a lot of the time, they do end up getting something right, or at least enough right that they can kill you quite easily. I mean, like rushing both at the same time into a room. I mean, there's very little that you can actually do to stop them when they do that. Now, real quickly, I do want to go over the build that I did use, that I was trying to actually create for the purpose of fighting the hunters. The build's purpose was to kind of combine all the things that can help you beat the hunters into one. So it's an extremely hybrid build that I don't really like for any other purpose besides for fighting the hunters. I'm pretty much rolled with, weapon damage, armor. I have a little bit of skill tier. I'm using, disrupt resistance. I'm using status effect. I'm using armor regen. I'm using crit chance, crit damage. My gear, I'm using 2 pieces of Cheska Varoba. I'm using 1 piece of the Yawl geared for the, the hazard protection. So I'm kind of trying to go for a all-in-one type build where I can apply enough status effect to keep them stunned. You can see here I've got a 5.7 second stun duration on my shock trap, and my chem launcher also has a 12.6 second ensnare duration. Now again, like I pointed out, a lot of this is based on luck. It doesn't really seem to matter too much what your build is. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't builds that are better than others for fighting the hunters. I mean, the build can be important. It can help you get out of certain bad situations. Like in this case, I am using Unbreakable. And that's just in case that they throw out a stinger hive or get something behind me, and I at least have a little bit of time to get rid of it. But if they really rush me, if they really try to actually work and kill me, then it doesn't really matter. They're going to get me. I don't have enough health. I don't have enough damage. I can't burst them down faster than they can kill me. I can't, survive longer than they can kill me. It's a mess when you're trying to actually fight them, and they are trying to actually kill you. If you really need a build, if you're really looking for something to try out as a solo player, my top suggestions are a bulwark build with some hazard protection. You can pretty much build it however you want, but having a strong bulwark shield and having a pistol that can actually do, a good amount of damage, definitely helpful. You might want to try a nemesis build. I'm talking, like full-on headshot, crit chance, crit damage, for the rest of everything else. That kind of build. Another build that you might want to try is just, kind of like a generic hybrid where you're rocking a bunch of status effect damage and, trying to get as much crit chance, crit damage with whatever else that you need on the build. And of course, you could always just go with a full-on max damage type build, just all reds, using, just like the shock trap and the riot foam just to prevent them from basically charging you into the room, and then basically just work them down that way. Now, in my experience, I was very rarely able to actually keep them stun locked to prevent them from getting the medkits off. But every time they did rush the room, I was able to drop them fairly low until they basically just ran out of medkits and then, take them out that way. It worked, as long as they weren't throwing skills and, using their actual tactics appropriately. But that's pretty much all I can say. Everything with the hunter encounter is based on luck. It's based on, the luck of the modifiers that you get. It's based on the luck of what the hunters are actually going to do. It's based on the luck of what the hunters, are actually equipped with. I mean, there's just so much luck based with fighting the hunters that it's really hard to say what's going to work for you and what's not. So if you are completely committed to beating Summit 100, 100% solo, then just be prepared for a long, drawn-out process of trying to get the perfect combination of everything. My honest opinion would be, don't really worry about doing it solo so much. Just, do it in a group. I mean, even 2 people would be fantastic, just because you can have one person completely dedicated to status effects, maybe having status effects and healing, and then the other person just focusing on the damage. That way, one person can just keep them stun locked while you are shooting them. So, that is probably the best tactic to use. I mean, that just scales up to, 4-man group. You can have 1 healer, 1 status effect guy, and 2 DPS guys. You can do that stuff a lot easier than you can with a solo. That basically just depends on the luck of the draw. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope I offered you something helpful. I hope I, kind of cleared up something for you. But thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.